Welcome back, Home CEOs. It's your host, Nicole Jakes. From Home CEOs to actual CEOs, what happens when two women ditch the world of big fragrance to craft their own non-toxic line for your home? Today, I sit down with Sarah and Amanda, CEOs of ESAS Fragrance, and join me as I chat with them about their bold career shift, their experiences as women in the workplace and at home, and why they believe big fragrance has no place in our homes. This episode unpacks their journey through adversity, their steps to carve a new path, and how they managed to do it all with both style and grace. And there's more. You won't want to miss their hilarious Truth or Dare session online. The link is below. We could not stop laughing during the game, and we hope it brings a big smile to your face too. So tune in for an inspiring and entertaining look at how these two trailblazers are shaking up the industry.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having us. We're excited to be here.
So we all have a common denominator, which is an autoimmune disorder. Mine is EOE, and it affects my esophagus. And the one thing I was told to do is to cut out toxins in my life. So I'm just going to deep dive straight into what inspired this company. Talk to me about the inspiration behind making clean fragrance, and actually clean fragrance, not greenwashing, clean fragrance.
No greenwashing.
Talk to me about the inspiration.
So Amanda and I both have backgrounds in chemistry. Amanda actually has her master's in cosmetic chemistry. And we actually met while working for the world's largest fragrance manufacturing company. And when I say the largest, so a lot of people don't know that this industry even exists. People think that the brands make all their fragrances, and it's really the secret fragrance industry that does all the world's fragrances, scented laundry, all of that stuff. And so we worked there for a combination of 25 years. I was there around 15 years, and Amanda was there around 10 years. And so I was running a pretty large account. It's a brand that everybody knows. You've smelled it in all the malls. You probably grew up wearing some of the fragrances. And so, it was a really exciting thing to do. We loved being a part of the product development process. And it was also really nice to be able to sort of take something from concept to shelf, right? And so it almost felt entrepreneurial in spirit. And you're involved in sort of every part of the process minus selling the product.
Yeah.
And you might help support that, but at the end of the day, we were just the makers of. And so we worked there for a really long time, but Amanda and I got sick. And so when that happened, we sort of, took a sort of beat and said, what's happening here? How are we going to sort of heal ourselves? And I started this anti-inflammatory diet, all organic, and it really changed my life. And I actually could not believe how swapping out certain things that I was eating for fully organic and anti-inflammatory, like how much of a positive impact it had on me. And then it dawned on me, I'm like, here I am, organic, going to every restaurant saying, is this grass-fed? Is this wild caught? Yet I'm surrounding myself with all these toxic products and toxic ingredients every day. And I'm like, this just not only does it not make sense for me, but I no longer feel okay or comfortable putting these products out on the market.
Yeah. And when Seda was going through this anti-inflammatory lifestyle, she was telling me about it. And my eczema was at its all-time high in New York City. I grew up with nuts allergies. So I always grew up reading ingredient lists and looking behind the box of what's inside the products and what am I going to be consuming. And because she was starting to really check what she was eating, I was like, okay, let me look at this too. And to her point, we were surrounding ourselves every single day in our offices with ingredients that we don't even want to touch and inhale ourselves. So it became to a certain point that is the lifestyle we're trying to have at home that we see already the benefits of coinciding with what we were doing every day in our offices?
Especially since we were in our offices more than we were at home. Working in New York City, it's a pretty fast-paced environment. You're working insane hours, 5-7 days a week. And we're like, it just did not feel right. It didn't make sense. And so we thought, what can we do about it? Like, what does this all mean?
Yeah.
Right?
Exactly.
What does this all mean? And what do we want to do with this information? And so I kind of, connected with Amanda and said, why don't we do something with the knowledge that we have that we feel good about?
Yeah.
Like, how can we help society? How can we give the same impact that we got from these anti-inflammatory diets to other people?
Mm.
And so in 2019, we left. And of course, COVID hit. And, the whole pivoting thing, right? Life is all about pivoting, especially as women. And so we went from wanting to launch, I wouldn't say completely different products, but wanting to prioritize more skincare cosmetics to sort of fragrance.
Mhm.
And so our first product we ended up launching end of 2020,
Yeah.
and it's called Colonia. And so Colonia is sort of this rinse-free hand cleanser meets fragrance. It's kind of like a do-it-all. And during that time, people were at home. They needed hand sanitizers. They needed to refresh themselves. And so we created this product that's rooted in the tradition that I grew up with. I'm first generation Turkish American. And that very quickly turned into many other product formats. People loved the scent so much that they were contacting us and saying, hey, can you make a fragrance? Can you make a candle? Can you make a room spray? And so we're like, sure, why not? We manufacture our own fragrances as chemists and with the expertise that we had in manufacturing. And so we were able to really pivot to give the customers what they wanted.
It's amazing and so inspiring. And I think on anybody who has an autoimmune or has somebody in their family that has an autoimmune, it's a slippery slope. And the one thing you're kind of told beyond diet, or here's a magic pill, depending on how you approach it with what doctor, is there's a lot of smells in the air and they affect you, which makes sense. Like you think about spring, there's pollen right now. People are having inflammation. Why would it be any different in our home, right?
Right.
But fragrance affects our bodies in so many different ways. Can you talk about some medical background there? Like, as you guys deep dived, why was it fragrance over, I don't know, house cleaner? Do you know what I mean?
So fragrance is interesting. It's secretly in everything, right? Whether you even realize it or not, fragrance is more likely than not in that product. And we say the word fragrance, we throw this word around like it's one ingredient. But in fact, fragrance formulations can be anywhere from 50 upwards of 200 ingredients. And so when you're reading a product, like an ingredient listing, you'll see, maybe 5 or 6 ingredients, and then you see the word fragrance. And it was always so funny to us because I'm like, within that word fragrance, there's actually, like we said, 200 ingredients. It far outweighs the amount of ingredients in the actual base of the product, yet it's 100% secret, right? The industry has something called trade secrets. And so they believe that they need to protect their IP, which is their formulations. And so this is just kind of how it's been for many, many, many years. And for us, it's kind of like, here we are, it's an industry working with nearly 4,000 ingredients that nobody even knows about. So when someone like Amanda who's growing up with an allergy, or somebody who has an autoimmune issue saying, I want to reduce the toxins in my life, but I don't even know what's in this fragrance, we're talking about thousands of ingredients. And there have been studies done that show people, especially women, touch scented products nearly 40 times a day. So if you're doing, if not more, and this was maybe 10, 15 years ago, they were saying this. Now we're consuming more and more product, more and more scented product. And so if you do the math, I mean, it's a simple calculation. You're touching thousands of ingredients a day that you did not even know about. So here we are making sure that our beef is grass-fed, but we don't even know about these other thousands of ingredients that we're touching. And so what is the impact of that? What could potentially, there is no one size fits all impact, right? It's a range of impact. And I think the short answer is, of course, there is things like endocrine disruptors, right? There are things that cause allergies. There are carcinogens. I mean, there are all these crazy things. I remember when I was an assistant and it was my job to send out the fragrance oil, I would sit there and every time you sent a product out, like fragrance oil to the brand, because we were not the brand, right? We were just a manufacturer. It had to go with something. It had to accompany paperwork called an MSDS, Material Safety Data Sheet. And I remember being like, I don't know, 20 something years old and, looking through the paperwork and saying like potential reproductive, toxicity and like environmental toxin and all these things. And I'm like, what the heck am I touching? Yeah. And why am I touching this? So someone can smell good. Mm-hmm. Like there must be a better option. And so there are so many potential harmful effects of using these ingredients and using these products. And nobody really knows about it. And nobody really knows why they, and of course, everything is sort of a combination of many things, and I think at the end of the day, you just want to give people the opportunity to be the healthiest they feel they can be. And unfortunately, if you're removing a potential 4,000 ingredients a day, I think that's a really great place to start. We've heard from so many people who have had fertility issues say to them that their fertility doctors tell them the first thing to cut out is fragrance, because we don't know what's in there. We don't even know. The industry likes to say, oh, these are tested, these are safety tested. But honestly, as far as we're concerned, nobody even really knows. And these things are not deemed harmful until it's too late. Right? So until something has been deemed as toxic, it's like, oh, wait, we approved that 2-3 years ago. But now, our research says, or people have said, or studies have shown that there is a potential toxicity. So at the end of the day, I mean, at best, you don't really know. At worst, it's been tested to have endocrine disruptors in it, to have, some ingredients that can be potentially carcinogenic. So, I mean, who wants to be around that stuff?
Who wants to take that risk?
Who wants to take that risk? Is it really worth it when there are other options?
Yeah.
Well, now with you, there are other options now with your company, because for so long, that was the first thing that was really hard for me is, first of all, we're trained to think that clean has a smell. So that was a mind shift, right? Like similar to that, I'm having to go out and ask for no dairy, no egg, and to not have inflammation inside my body. I'm now having to approach my lifestyle for what's outside of my body that I can control, especially in my home, since we spend so much time in them.
Exactly.
And I think it was tricky for me. And then I felt like I had to give up this idea of femininity, which was another mindset shift, that I couldn't smell like how I want to smell. And that was tough, whether it be from deodorant and switching to a salt stick with no aluminum in it. I had to kind of give up the idea that like smell has no smell. Clean has no smell. That is what you're really trying to get to, is that there's really no smell. But one of my most common questions on my platform is, I don't want to give up smelling good. So what are my options? And so when I found both of you and this company, I was tearful once I got in all my packages, because I was like, I can actually use this and know that I'm not going to cause harm to me or my kids or my environment, and I can still enjoy the smell. I mean, for the longest time, I felt like I was like peeling oranges just to like get citrus in my house, or using a simmer pot to use organic ingredients to make it smell great. But then when the simmer pot comes off your stove, what do you have? So I can't thank you gals enough for doing all the homework so I don't have to, and really truly creating a product that's very rare on the market that really truly is clean and not greenwashed. How do you think consumers' attitudes towards the non-toxic space and, natural beauty products has changed in the last decade?
It's interesting because I think we have seen sort of the evolution of that over the past 5 to 10 years. In fragrance, we often say that fragrance trends follow food trends, and they're usually 5 years behind. And so we saw this big shift and this big evolution sort of in the food sector, with not only healthy, it went from healthy, right, to more sort of specific categories like keto and paleo and anti-inflammatory. I don't think I ever used the word anti-inflammatory until, 10 years ago. And so we're now seeing that in beauty. We're now seeing that in cosmetics. We're seeing it in skincare. And now what's following is fragrance. Fragrance is sort of the last to follow, especially since the 80%, 90% of the world's fragrances are made by a handful of companies. So if they're not willing to budge, the fragrance space is not really going to change too much. It really requires sort of smaller brands doing what we do. I think what food did for consumers was give them knowledge and power to learn how to read labels. And we're seeing how there's like a big crossover effect from food to cosmetics. So now everybody can read their ingredient label and say, you know what? I don't want this, I want that. They know exactly what to look for. And the only sort of, I feel like the one big mystery was fragrance. It's like you still can't really read a fragrance label. You'll see a product which is fairly non-toxic, right? Cosmetics and skincare, I believe, have sort of come a long way in terms of the non-toxic space. But fragrance was lagging. So you saw cosmetics and you saw skincare that we feel sort of pretty good about. And then once again, you saw the word parfum or you saw the word fragrance, and it's like, and so that's kind of what we were excited to do, was sort of unlock that word and we see how educated and how knowledgeable our customers are. Like, it's incredible. I love when someone comes to us and they're like, do you have Galaxolid in here? I'm like, oh my gosh, like, it's so nice that people feel so empowered with knowledge and information to know what to even ask for. Because I would say even 3 years ago, they probably wouldn't have known that word.
Yeah.
And so I think that it's just really beginning in fragrance, and there's still so much more sort of potential. And we hope not to be the only brand that's doing what we're doing, right? We want to sort of open the floodgates in terms of natural perfumery and natural scented products. And so I think there's a lot more to come in the fragrance space.
Yeah, it's really, it's exciting to see people commenting on our posts and really sharing their stories. Like, people are sending us emails, and really this autoimmune community, we knew that it existed, but we didn't even like tap into it when
I didn't
first
know. I
started.
mean, according to the CDC, there's 6 out of 10 people that are diagnosed with at least one autoimmune disease. And that's diagnosed. I mean, how many people are walking around not knowing? And so it's so crazy. It's so unfortunate. But I think what it's doing is forcing people to take ownership of their health again, right? I mean, there's like something so powerful about saying, you know what? I'm going to like stop. I'm not going to just do what I was doing before. I'm no longer on autopilot. I'm not just buying what the big brands are telling me to buy because they said this is clean or this is non-toxic.
Yeah.
I'm going to do my due diligence. And so that's kind of what's really happening. There's this big wave of people trying to take back their power in all parts of their life, right? In the home, outside the home, with their products, with their food, even their clothing, right? People, now there's organic clothing.
Yeah.
And it's just amazing. The world is so cyclical, because I always say this is how our grandparents grew up. And this is like, now we have fancy terms for it and all these like, but this is essentially how people used to live. And so it's going back to that a little bit.
Yeah, and then it's welcoming those like questions, because it really is just like such an honor and privilege to be able to create products for people that are looking. And, as Seda mentioned, we create these next product forms because people are asking for
Yeah.
it.
Every product we have is because people, like many people and many customers came to us and said, I want a deodorant, or I want a candle, or I want a diffuser, or whatever it is. And so we're just kind of like, okay,
Yeah.
why don't we do that, right? It's not about us telling people what they want. It's about us giving people what they want and what they miss. Like, fragrance is so beautiful. I mean, to be able to smell is a God-given gift. And so you are right. It is kind of sad when you can't essentially use your nose to feel better. It's actually tested as mood boosting.
Yeah.
It shifts your mood. And I think we can all use all the help we can get, right? And, fragrance is like an instant mood boost. It's an instant mood change. And so many women have come to us and said, I haven't used fragrance in 10, 15 years because I had breast cancer, or I had this, or I had that. I mean, if we read to you the amount of emails and DMs with like, it's almost like the same template.
Yeah.
So many people have unfortunately gone through this experience, but it's crazy to see how they miss fragrance, because it's just like, it's a moment of joy. It's a moment of happiness. And so to be able to sort of reunite them with fragrance again has been so awesome. And it was so unexpected, I think. I didn't think that there were other people like us out there, really.
Yeah.
I thought that it was more, I love fragrance. I kind of want a natural one. But there's a true, I think, sort of outcry for people demanding healthier products,
Yeah, exactly.
And so it's so nice to be able to offer that to them. It really is an honor and a privilege. And so we're just happy to be able to do what we do.
Hey, home CEOs. Okay, big question. Are you ready for Father's Day? It's coming up and fast. And this Father's Day, I wanted to give you a tip. Treat any dad like royalty with Good Ranchers, the #1 American meat delivery service. They just launched the King Cut box. It's my husband's favorite. And it's stuffed with thick cut bone-in ribeyes, center cut filet mignons, and thick cut bone-in New York strips. And it's a perfect way to make any dad's day sizzle. But guess what? This gets better. Good Ranchers is offering free bacon for life. I know, you heard me right. With any new subscription. So use my code HOMECEO and get 2 packs of uncured Applewood smoked bacon with every order. Yeah, free bacon forever. So again, here's how you're going to nail Father's Day. All you need is to follow these directions. Head to goodranchers.com, grab the King Cut box for dad, subscribe to their amazing meat boxes for yourself, use your code HOMECEO at checkout for your lifetime supply of bacon, and enjoy free shipping and make Father's Day unforgettable. So great, right? Change the way you buy meat today at goodranchers.com. Again, with my code HOMECEO to claim your free bacon for life. And this year, let's give dad more than just funny dad jokes. All right, back to the Home CEO. I think that that's the most exciting part, is that there's so many options and that you're really listening to the consumer. So many companies are like, well, I'm going to do what I think is going to market best. And
Yeah.
that's not how you are. You're natural helpers. You're women's women.
Yeah.
And like, you're there for the people, right? And the community that's built in it, which is a common denominator between us three, which is why I just adore you both. But furthermore, smell really triggers memory. And so for me, I, was growing up and smelling food that my mom was cooking, or we were not candle lighters growing up. So I was not in a home with a lot of fragrance, although we did have Bounty dryer sheets, which is another conversation. And so I really trigger scent to memory. And I feel like I'm giving that to my children now because of ESAS. What's the name represent? Can you walk me through that?
Sure. So as I mentioned, I'm Turkish American first generation, and the word esas is a Turkish word, and it means real and it means root. When Amanda and I were building the brand and we were trying to come up with a name, we went through the worst names you could ever imagine. And we were working with someone who was sort of listening to sort of our why, our mission. And it took months, mind you. And so she said, I hear you girls say a lot about real ingredients, real people, creating this business model that's all about real things, like making it regenerative, using things that come from the earth and, sourcing locally and organically, and also being inspired by our roots, by, the way our ancestors lived, the way our grandparents lived. And so she very brilliantly came up with the word ESAS, and it was the first of, I think, maybe 500 word recommendations she gave to us. When I first heard it, I was like, ESAS. I mean, I know what the word is, but she said, I guarantee you the name that you're going to like and fall in love with is on this first list, but I'll keep going. So she's like, I'll humor you and I'll keep going. And it was the first word on the sheet that she gave us. And so we could have probably cut out, I don't know, 2 months of her work had we believed her. And we liked that it was short and that a lot of people can sort of pronounce it in their own way. And that's what we wanted. We wanted people to sort of pronounce it in the way that was comfortable to them.
I love that story. I think that there's so much behind women-owned companies where there's compassion and love and heart and thought put into names and what they represent and the core of their business. Talk to me about ethical dilemmas that you face in your business, because creating something so rooted in tradition and the clean space can also come with some ethical dilemmas. There's a lot of fillers, or there's things that you can add to this to make it less expensive, right? Things like that.
And that's opposite of the way we operate, right? The ethical dilemma is that we try to stay as ethical as possible. And so it's really hard to compete. Yeah. It's really hard to compete with price. It's really hard to compete with so when you're looking, if you compare, and let's take our fragrances, for instance, and we compare it apples to apples with sort of that standard conventional premium fragrance, they're competing on a completely different level. Our margins are completely different. Our ingredients are anywhere from sometimes 100 to 500, if not more times expensive. And so it's always Amanda and I trying to figure out how can we continue to give the best quality product with the sort of fairest price point.
Yeah.
And so that's something that we're always dealing with.
Because in the fragrance industry, and what we were taught for so long was you want the fragrances to be strong, you want them to last forever. But the fact that you're making fragrances that last forever, you're including all these other chemicals that last forever.
That actually last
forever. And we had to reconstruct fragrance development in sort of a completely different way, using all these ingredients, using these naturals, using these orris fruit that's $500, using this tonka bean that's $400, using these flowers. We want to use those ingredients, so we wanted to really reformulate how things were made. Especially also with our deodorant, we use rice ferment instead of using all those chemicals that clog your pores, that last forever, and that enter into women's bloodstreams. We completely changed how our products are created.
Yeah, I think all of our formulas are so unique and so different than anything you've seen on the market.
Yeah.
So it took a long time and it took a lot of thought and intention to fully understand, number one, efficacy, right? These products, they need to work, they need to perform.
Yeah.
So like, how do we work backwards from there? Because it's not just about using a beautiful ingredient. It's like there needs to be a purpose behind that ingredient.
Mm-hmm.
And on top of this, at the end of the day, we need to make sure that we're delivering these products, like I said, in a way that people are able to feel comfortable purchasing them. We're not creating a luxury brand for the sake of creating a luxury brand. The luxury of our brand comes through the ingredients, the quality of the ingredients. They are truly superior. And everything is so carefully selected. I mean, we will also make sure that the sourcing of those ingredients are ethical. We will make sure that the sustainability is there, right? So we're not using every natural on the market just because it's natural. It's a very nuanced, conversation. Natural, sustainability, health. It's not black and white. And a lot of people we see in our comments, they like to distill it down to something black and white.
Yeah.
Natural is not just because something is natural doesn't mean it's safe for you. And we're like, we agree, everything requires knowledge, expertise, research, and like our due diligence on our end. And so, it's definitely not easy to do what we're doing. There is really not that much of a template for it. And so we've had to almost construct the, foundation of this business from scratch.
I share the sentiment. There is so much in what I do and doing it ethically and being on social media and keeping it authentic, showing up the real me, that it is very difficult, but I feel like you do it effortlessly. So I applaud you once again. Okay, I have a fun question. You're stuck on a deserted island and you can only bring one product with you. What is it? Of yours, of course.
Hammam. Actually, hammam or colonia? I think it's colonia.
Yeah. And then, you would go hammam. I would go.
Yeah, because you can just kind of use it all over. I mean, you can use colonia all over too, but it's definitely one of those.
Yeah,
for sure. They're just so multifunctional.
Yeah, I mean, colonia, you can use it for your pimple spots. Yeah. You can use it.
Colonia is an amazing.
It's just a really nice, just refresher. You could. The Turkish heritage, I remember her dad was telling a story how he uses it as aftershave.
Yeah.
So there's multiple, it's a multifunctional product.
It is so hard to define what colonia is. It's colonia.
Yeah.
You can't, trying to explain to people what it is. It's like, here, just use it.
Yeah.
And then you tell me how you would describe it.
Yeah.
And so colonia is actually a good one. I take back my hammam and I checkmate it with colonia because it's just, I've used this when I was pregnant. I have a now 22-month-old. And when I was pregnant, I don't use deodorant. I mean, I now use hammam, but even before we had developed hammam, I was using our colonia all over the place. It's so good for you. It has so many benefits. It has all these amazing skin extracts and it's just hydrating and all the things. Yeah. But let me tell you, I think you would agree that pregnancy BO is another level. And I was like, I need something with a little more oomph, maybe a little more this and a little more that. And so when I went to Amanda, I was like, I love colonia, but let's make a colonia 2.0 for people who really need it. And that's kind of where hammam came. But
yeah, so hammam has the probiotics. It's good for your microbiome. It breaks down malodor. So, and it's longer lasting. That can go through a workout.
Yeah.
Well, it's the only thing that gets me through hot yolks. It's the real deal. And I probably have tried 15, 16 different, clean deodorants, quote unquote. But I agree. I think everything in your line is very versatile. I don't think it's nuanced just to one thing. And I think that's what makes it so beautiful. Is you can use it how you see fit in your lifestyle.
Exactly.
And what a beautiful gift to give to people.
Thank you. We're so happy to hear that. That's awesome.
There are a lot of young entrepreneurs out there, especially women, moms. Some advice that you would give a young entrepreneur?
Create a village, have a village, just in general, right? I think it's one of the most challenging things that we've done.
Yeah.
No lie, full authenticity and transparency here. It's a roller coaster of a journey, emotionally, physically, financially, and making sure that you sort of have the people around to lean on that you need in this journey is so integral. I think that's why Amanda and I are sitting here. It's because we had so many amazing people support us, truly, truly support us emotionally, mentally, like all of it.
Yeah.
It's definitely not a journey for the weary. It doesn't just, we thought we were going to put our heads down for a year and work and like everything was going to be okay. And it's just, it was a lot of naivete, right? That's how people even start this journey. And so, but I think that's my biggest thing. Looking back, it's like, what even made us keep going? It was really having the right support. It really was, for me, at least.
Yeah, family I think has been like number one. I think us as like business partners,
Having the right business partner.
having the right business partner is really important, and being able to like look at problems differently and approach solutions together. But also aside from that, like personally being willing to pivot and willing to change when you have an idea, and then how it actually is executed at the end of the day. At then because it's really also for the customer, listening to them and what they have to say, and really provide products that they're interested in, providing service that they're interested in.
Give yourself grace. You're going to go through really interesting moments, and you're not going to, going into this prior to this, we had such high standards for so many things.
Yeah.
And you have to essentially, when we say pivot on like your personal life too, just kind of ease up on certain things, like let yourself go through the ebbs and flows of having a business. You don't need to operate at the same level in every sort of aspect of your life 100% of the time. So it's really giving yourself that grace is really important.
I love that. I always say just surrender to the flow. It's always the people that are fighting upstream that I'm like, just surrender to the flow. It'll take you where you need to go. And that's easier said than done sometimes. If you could have a superpower that would improve your ability as a CEO, what would it be and how would you use it?
I think for me, if I had a superpower as a CEO, would be to add more hours into my day. It's really like the resource that I lack the most is time. And being able to, there's no such thing as juggling a bunch of things at once. It's just kind of like you're not doing a bunch of things at once. And so being a mom, having a business, doing all the things in between, it's really like, I wish I can just add a few more hours to the day, which I would probably just use up anyway. It would really be that. My biggest and most valuable resource is time, which I never have enough of.
I was going to say turn back time, but at the end of the day, it's like whatever happens, sort of what you said, like surrender to the flow. Things happen for a reason. I think for me, it would be to teleport. I think we've been very lucky with the people that we've surrounded ourselves with. And I'd love to meet more people in person and build that community together. I mean, the community already exists, and being able to meet people in person, I think would be such a pleasure and such a treat. Yeah.
I'm always like, I want a magic home that cleans itself and like has dinner on the table.
I love that one.
Maybe it's like the Disney princess in me that is like, can't the house just be magical and like run itself? But, you mentioned something that's really important to me is viewing the home and my work very holistically. I think we grew up in families that were like, you leave work at work and out. Like, there's no pivot point there. It's all together. We're one community here. And holistically, as we start to view our home as like a living, breathing entity, it becomes less stressful, right? Like, and I think that that's an important way to look at washing the dishes down to, bedtime routines. But I have learned, I do work in my home, but there is an element of it's all together. And if we all find a cyclical way to handle that, it'd be great. And a magic house. I'm just saying that cleans it.
I like the magic house. Yeah. If it can clean itself and make its own food.
Yeah, clean the stovetop.
I think that would be amazing.
Right? There are just times I'm like, I just like a break for a week. Isn't there a button I can press? Yeah. We can create AI, but we can't get a magic house. I don't know. Okay, if you could create a fragrance inspired by your favorite movie or book, what would it be and what would it smell like?
One of my favorite is Great Expectations. I just love that movie and the whole story. And I'm very sort of, romantical inside. I love my florals. I love my white florals. And so I feel like it would honestly be Bear and or gardenia. Like it's such a beautiful, like gardenia and lily is such a rich gardenia fragrance. It just smells fantastical, if you will. Like it really transports you to somewhere really magical and romantic. And so it would be something around that.
I think for me, similarly, it would be like that moment, not to be so stereotypical, that moment in the Notebook where the swans are, was it all the swans?
Attacking them?
Not attacking, but they're ringing. And they were on that boat, and when they finally dock, and she like yells at him to come back. Like, what does that smell like?
Tears.
What tears? The
Tears and rain.
the salt, the rain, and it's sort of just like that, like sort of that musk that envelops you, that comfort, in that moment of like falling in love.
It's so interesting. I read this study about scents and smells and memories and all of that is part of it. But I also love that if like the way you're describing it, I can taste it and smell it right now.
Yeah, totally.
Do you know what I mean? Like I've never licked a rock, but there was a friend who told me, you know what a rock tastes like, don't you?
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my gosh, I do.
Yeah.
Why? Why is that, right?
It's like minerals.
Yeah.
But I do.
Why do I know that? And it's because, right, it's all tied together, right? Those senses are tied together. And as you said, like they're God-given, like it's a birthright to smell and to be able to taste. And so there's something very cool about that. Okay, well, ladies, we're at the time in the show where I ask you guys truth or dare. And the reason we do this is not because it's just like one of my favorite games or party tricks to pull out of my pocket. It also is a way to pivot. So our conversation has been so amazing and so enlightening, but now I get to ask you to kind of like, you don't know what's going to be thrown at you, which is just how it feels running a home and a business, by the way. So tell me truth or dare. And we'll do one first and one next. How about that? Who wants to go first?
Dare.
Go grab a piece of paper, if there's one near you, and a pen, and draw a family member or a pet using your non-dominant hand and show it to us.
Oh my God.
It's funny to do, but I've started brushing my teeth with my non-dominant hand and kind of saying my daily mantras, and it stimulates something in the brain. So I actually like this dare because I'm like, okay, good. We're going to like stimulate another side of her brain.
Sure.
And then you should ask her like, what's the next innovation in the company after she's
and see what comes out. I hope you're not drawing me. I know this is not an attractive photo.
Yeah, I feel bad for the person that I meant for this for.
Yeah.
Like it became a big potato instead of instead of like a stick figure body. This is supposed to be my mom, but I'm not sure if I should say it. But like she was holding up a little notebook. But I remember when I was a kid, I was asking her like, I don't know how to learn. And she was like, pretend you're a teacher. And I was like, okay. So like I lined up all my stuffed animals, and that's how I learned how to do some addition and subtraction. I don't know why that never came to mind.
Cute. That's so nice.
Yeah. But that's that.
That is so cool. I love that. Okay, you're next, Seda. Truth or dare?
I'll do dare.
Show us the last photo you took related to something homemaking or a family event and tell us about it.
Well, they're obviously all of my daughter. Homemaking or a family event. Okay.
It's so cute.
Yeah.
So this is a little video. I was making her breakfast the other day, and I sat her next to me as I was making eggs, and she just started eating butter. And this for me is so iconic because the anti-inflammatory diet that I talk about, I drank a lot of butter coffee. And so like every day for like, I don't know, 7 years, basically until I got pregnant and I couldn't stomach anything, is how long I drank this. So when I just plopped her up on, the countertop, and I was making her eggs, and I was like, she's my child. That is definitely my child. And I was just, it's so funny. I think it must be in the genes. I ate so much butter that it literally like changed her genetic makeup.
Your husband too.
My husband too. So yeah, she didn't have any other choice. She was either going to detest it or fall in love with it early on.
That is so sweet. Yeah, kids do the funniest things. Mine loves butter too. Maybe it is the butter coffee. You might be onto something because I even drank it decaf when I was pregnant. I was like, not going to give that up.
Yeah. I wish I could have. I couldn't. I hadn't eaten bread in 10 years prior to becoming pregnant, and it ended up being the only thing I could stomach. I was like, is this a joke? I wish I could have done that.
Yeah, it is one of those. Like, I couldn't do any vinegar, but I'm a vinegar girl. And
Yeah.
I was
Interesting.
like, I just detested it. Pregnancy is a whole nother, that's a whole nother episode.
That's a whole other podcast. It's a whole other theme.
It's a whole nother podcast.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, ladies, I have so enjoyed chatting with you. This has been educational and inspiring. Thank you for all that you do. Where can we find you?
ESASNYC.com or at ESASNYC on all the social media platforms.
ESASNYC.
Thank you for giving us the platform, this opportunity, and creating this community. It's so awesome.
You teach so much, and it's amazing what you do.
It really is. It's selfless. It's amazing. And like being able to meet women like you, I think has been sort of one of the most amazing things on this side, because you don't have this in corporate. You don't. And it's just wonderful to be a part of.
Yeah.
I think so much so that initially we're like, is it all even real?
Yeah.
Are people nice out on this side?
I'm so happy to hear that. I think the one thing we can always do is spread more kindness and be a helper and be a light, but also be a woman's woman and understand if we all come together for the greater good, for the better idea, like where are we going to be for our daughters, right? Like there's a lot of that thought in there. So meeting with inspirational women who have made a large pivot in a large industry and are doing it, I mean, that gives me chills down my backbone. So thank you both for being empowering and inspirational and for doing hard work. It's hard work. And I appreciate you guys so much. Thank you for tuning in to today's episode, Home CEOs. We hope you enjoyed our chat as much as we did and found some nuggets of wisdom, or at least a good chuckle or a good cry. Remember to hit subscribe on your favorite podcast platform so you don't miss out on our next episode, which I promise brings more laughs, tips, tricks, and a sense of community with lots of enlightening moments. That's what we're here to do. This is the village you've been looking for. Until next time, keep smiling and stay curious. Shine your light wherever you go on those that are dim. They need it the most. Do something kind for somebody else and put a smile on their face. And move your body for someone who can't. In gratitude, you can. You are worthy. You are abundant. You deserve it. And you keep rocking your home like a biz. Cheers to more success, less stress, and less mess. I'll see you next time on The Home CEO.